Hey guys, welcome back to the Miss Independent podcast. So excited to have you guys here today. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I've got my partner, Alex, here today. Been together for 9 years, and we've lived together for over 4. We have 2 businesses together. We invest in real estate together. So it's going to be an exciting episode where we talk about how we manage finances together. And I posted on my Instagram channel at Miss Independent earlier this week, asking people to put in some questions for us about how we manage finances and just our lives in general. We got quite a few questions to get through today. So today's episode is a Q&A on how we manage finances together.
Right on.
Okay, so let's get into it. We can start with the first question, which is on how we manage expenses together.
Well, for our expenses together, we have a joint account. I think that's what we use, right? For our bills and stuff, we have a joint account for all the expenses that we incur together. Comes out of there, keeps things organized.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, you can even get a credit card that you share and pay off from that account.
So we signed up for the joint account when we first moved in together, like when we had expenses, mortgage and things like that. And all of our bills will come out of that account as well. But we didn't open that account until we lived together. That's a pretty big thing.
When you first start a relationship, you don't have a joint account. Maybe you can keep like a ledger of what the costs of everybody's incurring, but we weren't really that prudent with it. We kind of
we had
chill with it.
A lot of Excel spreadsheets before then. With the joint account, it's a little bit easier because we both contribute a certain amount and you can see exactly what the transactions are. And I think the key thing is that account isn't used for personal spending. It's only used for joint necessities. So like groceries, bills, things like that will come out of that account. Date night, we don't actually use that account for, but I think part of the reason is
maybe we should.
We should, yeah. Part of the reason is it's not like it's a checking account, but it doesn't have its own debit card for it. So we don't take money.
We probably could get one, but you're right. Maybe it keeps our spending habits more under control that we can't access it through a debit card.
Yeah, probably a good idea. But the big thing is like that one account we opened up after we moved in together when we started to incur major expenses. Before that, we just tracked everything on Excel. And we both still have our own separate accounts. So the next question is on how we manage personal and fun budgets. And we'll talk about both of those. I guess the fun budget wouldn't be anything different from that joint account. Everything gets pulled out of there. But personal spending is key because we both have our own separate ways of doing things. We have very different spending habits, I would say.
Pretty in line, I'd say, for the most part. Maybe a little bit different. I'm not buying shoes, but it's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a big one. I like shoes. And that was actually a big thing that we'd gone through when we first moved in together because the way that I was spending was very different from Alex. And I had accumulated quite a bit of credit card debt initially. Part of it was we just moved in together. We had a lot of, shared expenses and separate expenses. Like we were starting from ground zero. We had never moved out before. So we had to buy everything from like forks to furniture. And furniture can be very expensive. So I'd fallen into a little bit of a hole, and I remember that was the first time that you had a conversation with me. You were very open and were like, I can lend you the money so this doesn't become a big problem. But it was very comforting for me to know that like even though it was my problem, it was my debt, that you was through it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you first started making money, it's really easy to start spending everything you earn. It's exciting, obviously. I mean, I went through that too. Everybody went through that. But at a certain point, you realize you have to be a little more mature and responsible with your financial decisions. So if you do have some credit card debt, it's like the bane of all debts. And I was really keen on making sure that we can, wipe that slate clean. And to date, I don't think you have any credit card debt. You're pretty good on that, friend.
No, definitely things have changed quite a bit.
We know not to spend money that we don't have, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing is like we live below our means. That's something that's shifted in terms of our mindset. I think we could definitely do some work on that. It's easy. Lifestyle creep definitely picks up, and as you start to earn more, you want to spend more. But I think as a rule of thumb, we definitely try to invest. That's actually the next question is how we handle investing. So we can get into that.
I think for the most part, we have like separate investment accounts. Obviously, like if you're full-time employed in Canada, you probably have your own RRSP. And then any other contributions that you make on top of that in your personal TFSAs, RRSPs.
So in Canada and the US, we do things a little bit differently. We have different names for different types of accounts. So an RRSP is the same as a 401k, and a TFSA is the same as a Roth IRA. So both Alex and I have our own separate investing accounts. Part of the reason is that started them separately, and even though we've got a high level of risk, I would say Alex definitely can take on riskier positions than me. I like to invest for the long term and hold a lot of my stocks, whereas Alex, your philosophy can be a little bit different sometimes, and there's things that you invest in that I didn't invest in.
Sure. I mean, like when you're young, you have a little more risk tolerance. Obviously, you have
a longer time horizon.
You have a longer time horizon. I mean, everybody's got to make some silly investments to learn. Yeah, at a certain point, I'd say my risk tolerance was very high. So I was willing to invest in pretty much anything. Some of those paid off, and, others were a learning experience.
Alex is definitely a bit more of a crypto ape than me.
Right. Yeah. Crypto aping is a costly endeavor, but it's also where the future is headed. So, leave no stone unturned, try everything. And at the end of the day, you can always buy, the S&P 500.
Everybody's investing preferences are going to be different. So I think the reason why we have separate accounts is because if I want to make an investment, that's something that I'm doing separately. And
sure,
we talk about it, like we talk about our decisions together, and we'll bounce ideas off of each other. But ultimately, having your own accounts is important, because with the RRSP, which is your retirement account, which is the same as your 401k, if you are employed by a company, your company will contribute to that. So you don't necessarily have two incomes flowing into that one account. So it just helps keeps things separate.
I mean, yeah, it's prudent to have control over your own investment accounts. Like if your significant other for some reason wants to take control of your accounts, maybe see that as some sort of red flag.
Yeah, definitely a big red flag. If your partner wants to control your finances, that is something to be mindful of and aware of, because that can funnel into other aspects.
Yeah, there's a difference between giving advice and maybe like aligning each other's goals versus just like taking your partner's money and investing it for them. We each have a pretty good level of investment education. We can make our own investments. There's no reason, maybe at some point we'll have some joint investments too.
Well, we have a ton of joint investments.
You're
we
right,
have
actually.
Businesses together, and we invest in real estate together.
Yeah,
so
you're
we
right.
definitely do have joint investments.
No
together.
security, no like in stocks, but yeah, you're right. We have plenty of joint investments. You're right.
Yeah. So that being said, there's a few questions on when we first moved in together. Let's talk about that time, and then we can kind of progress, because our relationship has progressed quite a bit. But if we're looking at when we first moved in together, someone asked how we knew it was the right time.
Okay, it's less of a financial question, more of like a relationship question. With the move in with your significant other, one thing you have to navigate is the financial question. So you got to decide who's going to pay the bills, what your arrangement is there. And it's different for all people. Maybe there's a vastly different income difference, and one person can contribute less. Maybe it's about the same and they contribute equally.
That was a good point in there. If one person makes substantially more, my philosophy is that they should be contributing more to shared expenses. And it can be a weighted average based on salary. Like if one person is over six figures and one person is, let's say making like 50K, then the amount that they both contribute to shared expenses like a mortgage, I don't think it should be equal, because one person is going to be stretched quite a bit, and for one person it's not going to be as significant.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a personal opinion. You can't really dictate how people are going to be comfortable splitting costs in a relationship.
Yeah. We split things 50-50.
Yeah, it's probably the most common arrangement, right?
Yeah, it's just easier in terms of who pays the bills. Anything that's like a utility bill or hydro bill, Alex will usually take care of.
Any bills, any financials, any mortgages, I'm your guy.
Yeah, Alex is definitely more of a quant. Like, he loves Excel, he loves to crunch numbers. Naturally, I think it's something that Alex gravitates towards, and I have more of a creative mindset. I like to work with people. I like to come up with new ideas. So I think just how things naturally progress. Everyone has their own skills. So within a lot of the things that we do together, I will focus on certain things and Alex will focus on other things.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you're living together, it's not just split financial responsibilities, but it's also split like physical responsibilities, right? Share a place together, you share a home. You have to delineate a ton of different responsibilities to make your household cohesive, right?
That's why Alex takes out the garbage on Wednesdays. And
Right.
I do more of
Lounging. She does more lounging.
No, I do a lot more like interior decorating. I have more of a creative mindset. So when it came to a lot of our renos, which we'll talk about when we get into like how we split up real estate finances, that was definitely more of my skill set and why I take on things like that.
Yeah.
We have a few questions specifically on like when we moved in together. We talked about how we knew. I think part of it was like we at that point went on exchange together. Like Alex and I went through university together. We started dating just about when like first year started and have been together for quite some time. So we were together for almost 4 years before we had moved in. And we spent 6 months traveling abroad in Europe. And that was a big telling sign for us that, you know, this is the person that I do want to try living with and see where this goes and see what the future of this relationship has. So for us personally, part of it was timing. It felt right.
Yeah.
With that being said, there was quite a few questions regarding that. When you move in with a partner, what kind of questions do you want to ask them that are financially related or money related that will give you a sense of where their head's at? What are some questions that we talked about before we moved in or even as we were just starting to live together?
Well, I guess for a lot of people, this might be the first time they even talk about any financial questions with their partners.
Mm-hmm.
If you're signing a lease together, for example,
Yeah.
you're going to get your credit checked. They're going to like do some due diligence on you. So you should probably communicate to your partner. If you have really bad credit, you might not even be able to move in together, for example. And then aside from that, what other big financial questions should you have for your partner before moving in with them? I guess just maybe about their relationship with money, like their saving habits, if they're in debt significantly. So definitely just try to have a complete picture before making that big kind of like monumental step in your relationship.
Yeah, a lot of good points in there, Al. Like understanding if the person has debt beforehand is a big one. Like what people don't realize too when they get prenups is a prenup can help protect you from someone else's debt. So I think with debt, big question to ask. And again, come from a loving point of view. You never want to be aggressive about it. You just want to be open and understand. And, you know, you want to help guide the person. At the end of the day, when you are in a relationship, a big thing that Alex always says to me is it's me and you against the problem. It's never me and you against each other, which is, I think, a big thing that keeps us on track to know that, you know, whatever it is that we're going through, we're going to get through it together.
Yep, absolutely.
So debt is a big one. You want to understand what their spending habits are. You'll kind of get a sense of that, like, as you live together for sure, because if you're getting packages sent to the door constantly from Amazon or Sephora, you know that, you know, their spending habits are going to be different from yours. Another thing when it comes to questions that you want to ask your partner is seeing what their 5 to 10 year plan looks like and where they see themselves. And initially, when you're in the early stages of a relationship, you will have that plan for yourself. And then as you grow together, you start to build that person into your life plan. So a big exercise that we did when we first started living together is we had like a blank spreadsheet and we tried to visualize what our ideal life would look like. And that was the first time that we started to piece each other into this 5-10 year plan. And we looked at where we wanted to live, like what location, what we wanted our house to look like, what kind of lifestyle we wanted to live. If we had kids at that point, like we talked about all of these things and we had this kind of blueprint. It's actually a document that we call the blueprint. And we looked at what this lifestyle looked like and what the cost was, what those mortgage payments looked like, what those car payments looked like, what that lifestyle was. And then we worked backwards to see what kind of income we both needed to have in order to get there.
Yeah, when you like tangibly have a goal in mind, then you can break down how to get there. Without having a concrete goal in mind, you can just end up drifting in life and not working towards anything in particular, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having a common goal is so important. And I think that's what helps people stay on track. And as a couple, you recognize that you are working towards this goal together. So another question that I would definitely ask someone if we're like early on in a relationship is understanding what their values are and what their relationship with money is like in general. So if someone, you know, may not have had the best relationship with money, they might not be as financially literate. If you have something that you want to achieve and you want to build this person into your blueprint, you want to help them rewire their thinking a little bit. So having a common goal is critical.
Also, this isn't like first date conversations.
No,
it's probably like a bit
like
of a taboo
years
topic and really shouldn't be the focus of your finding a partner. It's just kind of like a long-term play when you're living together where you should hone in on this.
Definitely. When we moved in together, we just knew that the time was right. And as we started to live together, we started to both become very focused on what Alex calls IGA, income generating activities. And we tried probably every side hustle in the book at some point. So I think it's really important to have a supportive partner that will help you through different endeavors and will kind of like hold your hand a little bit. So I started my first Amazon business because Alex was very involved in the space and he was kind of pushing me to go out there and learn. You know, I saw the success that Alex was generating with it and I wanted to try it as well. And when I had tried and launched my first business, it was a complete failure. I'd lost, you know, a pretty big sum of money at the time, but I charged it to my experience. It was part of the learning process, and I'm thankful that Alex was able to guide me through that.
Absolutely. Something every entrepreneur goes through. You know, losing money isn't pretty, but if you charge it to your experience, then you can come out on top. It takes failures to learn the proper lessons, then turn them into successes. And your first product may have been a failure. My first 5 products were failures. Every other thing you try might not come to fruition, but as long as you leave no stone unturned, you'll eventually stumble upon some success. And I keep building on it. And, you know, after a couple of failed Amazon brands and products, we have some that work now. So, right.
A lot of failures, though, along the way. We have some questions actually on how we manage business and our partnership together. So we'll get into that. The first one is how we separate tasks. So a big one is like when I first started that brand and it failed. After that, we built a business, our first business together. And this was maybe 4 years into our relationship. So it wasn't like we were jumping into a business together and, you know, we just started dating. It was years of knowing each other, a couple years of living together at that point. We brought in a third party. So it wasn't just us two. We have another partner that's involved, very actively involved. And what really helped us is the ability to separate and delineate tasks. So Alex, maybe you want to get into like how we separate and how we do things differently.
I mean, everybody has their own strengths in a business. You know, Nicole has like the creative side and she's good at managing people. She understands like the organic side of the business very well. And me and my other partner, and although we've done a couple different things, like we kind of focus on the back end operation stuff, all the back end fulfillment, the supplier relationships, etc. Everybody has their own focuses in the business. Everybody just needs to have the same level of obsession in the success of the business for it to be, you know, for it to move forward.
That's a big one. When you're starting a business with someone, you always want to be driven by this goal that you're working towards, and everyone has to be aligned and working towards this thing. And that's when like conflicts in business can arise. It's when people just aren't driven by the same mission. So with us, we have this idea, this strategy that we are executing on. We know what we want to do. We're all equally aligned. And that's a big thing because we know what we're working towards at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I mean, we're all aligned. We know we want some sort of financial freedom. We want this to be a success. And that's what that's what it takes.
Also, we don't step on each other's toes. So when it comes to like Alex or our other partner meeting with different people, they have full reign, and I know, and I put my full trust in knowing that they're going to be able to handle those meetings or those conversations eloquently and present ourselves as professionally as possible. So a big thing in business is knowing that you put your full trust in your partner, and that happens like with our partnership too.
Yeah, you need to be able to fully trust your partner, because if you don't, then in a business setting, they may as well be an employee, right? If you're just, using someone to do some tasks for you, no, it has to be like a burning obsession for the success of the business from numerous people that are involved with it, all taking different angles and having different strengths and helping each other. And that's inevitably how a successful partnership works.
There's another question on our business and how we communicate through conflict.
Yeah, conflict is definitely tough. I find it's probably easiest when you leave the ego out the door, whether it's us two or our partner. We need to realize that we have the same goal in mind, and maybe somebody made a mistake, or maybe somebody isn't pulling their weight as much. It's about understanding that all of your partner's goals are the same as yours, and not focusing on the emotional aspect of it, but just kind of like how to take actionable steps to fix any kind of issues that arise. But ego is a big one. You know, people tend to conflate criticism in maybe the way that they're doing some work with like a personal affront, and it really isn't the case. So sometimes you just have to bluntly tell people that, hey, this isn't like personal affront. It's just like you need to do XYZ for this process to work better, for example.
And we've had some conversations that were definitely a little bit tough, especially like sometimes things come up that aren't working in the business and you have to pivot. And even though you were driving a strategy and it's not working, your partner might come in and be like, hey, why don't you approach it like this? Or we should be doing this. And there's never any animosity. There's never any, you know, why aren't you doing this properly? Being direct and understanding what needs to be done and guiding the other person and just helping them do what needs to be done. That's literally what it comes down to. And when we have tough conversations, sometimes I even preface and I tell you, Alex, I'm taking my partner hat off and I'm your business partner in this setting, and I will deliver feedback in a direct way that I think will help us evolve and grow. And, you know,
True. Well, we don't quite communicate so corporately.
No, but, you know, we do, like when we have things that we prep for and things that we could be doing better, we're very clear on.
It's true. At the end of the day, the outcome of our business success has some bearing on the outcome of our personal life, right? Because it kind of like
involves both of us.
Involves us both, and it kind of involves our future. So
people that are afraid to go in business with their partner are missing out on a fantastic opportunity to work with, you know, potentially your best friend or somebody that understands and sees you fully and recognizes the best parts of you.
People search their whole lives for the perfect business partner, but sometimes the perfect business partner is
right in front of you. I was kind of scared initially when we were starting up our business, but as we got into it, that fear instantly went away because I realized, like, I'm putting my trust in you, and if I trust you in our personal life, I can trust you in a business setting as well, and I know that you're going to put our best interests forward. So definitely nothing to be afraid of. And I think anybody that is a little bit more cautious about it, like, this is just a sign that
if you don't trust your partner in business, then
you're not going to trust them in your relationship. So definitely a point of concern. It's tough when it's very early on because you don't know the person fully. You're still discovering and learning things about them. So definitely don't recommend it with, you know, if it's your first year in. But as you grow, you can grow together in all aspects. So that's business. I love being in business with you. I love doing life with you, Alex. And next question is on how we manage our real estate finances together. And Alex and I have just done a massive project recently where we went through 5 months of renovation. So it was a lot of work and a lot of number crunching, a lot of being very, very detail oriented. So Alex, why don't we talk about that a little bit and like how we manage that together?
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, we managed it together by kind of both diving into the deep end. The stuff that I knew how to do, I picked up and just did. And then, you know, you picked up in the gaps of like where we needed assistance. You were kind of ad hoc helping everywhere, which was great.
And I learned a bunch of new skills through it.
You know,
there was,
having done property management in the past, I had like a pretty good understanding of like how to get trades, where to get materials, stuff like that. And since I work in real estate finance, I could arrange, you know, the financing and all that stuff for us. And then it was a matter of getting things done, coming here weekly, making sure the finishes are nice and planning the layouts and everything like that. And we kind of took turns taking responsibilities for those things. And now that we finished the project and turned this home into 3 units, now we manage it. And there's ongoing costs related to it, and there's bills, and there's all these things, but we have like a pretty good plan on what we manage. I just do everything.
No.
I'm joking.
But it's just, you can't make decisions quickly when you're working on a massive project like that. You need to be able to have your partner make executive decisions. So a big thing also comes back down to trust, understanding different people's skill sets. Like I was on more of the design, the creative side of the project, trying to figure out logistics of like, how do we build a kitchen like this? And, you know, what are the core pieces, and doing more of the project management of like, this is the scope of the project. This is what we need to do. What do we need to do today to move the needle? So a lot of that was...
We had like a general contractor, thankfully, that really helped us. It's
really
not like we were doing all the work, and we would come and see him weekly. He'd give us a to-do list and we would execute it. It was very helpful. He's involved obviously with just the construction portion, and the lease up and the operations is on us. Yeah, a general contractor is a huge plus for any massive renovations.
Yeah.
They got their minds in all sorts of places. They're thinking about a million different things to make sure that the renovation is successful. And doing it yourself is frankly a lot cheaper, but a lot more challenging too.
Mm-hmm. So it all comes down to putting your trust in the partner, letting them take on certain pieces, and understanding that people have different strengths and weaknesses. So I hope you guys get some clarity on how we manage finances and how we do things. And how we do things isn't necessarily what's going to work for you, but it's what works for us. So I'm happy that we were able to share what helped us get here. And we are nowhere near the end of our journey. We're
Absolutely.
Just starting.
We're still figuring it out.
But, this is what's been working for us. So hopefully you guys found some wisdom in this. And if there's anything else that you want to know, any other questions you have, throw us a comment or send me a DM and we can do a part 2.
Thanks, guys.